Hello, everybody. Welcome to this unannounced chat with me, presentation, interview, whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to be talking for around about half an hour about the things that I'm going to be involved in the next few months, because there's been a lot of stuff going on, and I really want you guys to be aware in advance of the dates and the things that are going to be happening. It's a very exciting time for me at the moment. So the first thing I want to tell you about is that on this coming Sunday, the 22nd of January, I'm going to be broadcasting on here a live interview, which is technically part of my consciousness hour, but kind of isn't, because I'm going to be trying to do a double interview whereby it's going to be going out live on here, but it will also be involved with good friends of mine, Paul Northridge and Jonny Sinclair from the Unite Planet podcast. Now, I've already done, I think, 3 interviews with these guys in the past where they visited me here in my home in West Sussex. But this time around, what we're going to be trying to do is to go out live via YouTube to let the world know about various bits and pieces about my life. And the plan is that they're going to be interviewing me about my new book and the plans I have for the future. But because their questions are always very interesting, I think it's going to be quite an intriguing chat in terms of a little bit more about me, because I know that we interview many people, Sarah and I, but it's unusual for me to have the opportunity to talk a little bit about myself and my ambitions and my background and everything else as well. Of course, there's lots of videos out there on YouTube where I'm talking about these things, but I think this is the opportunity for me to tell you a little bit about myself, the way I want it to go in one way or another. So what we will do is we'll record that, and it will go out in a similar way to this, and then it will be recorded, and it will also be placed on the Unite Planet YouTube site as well. We're going to be doing that for around about an hour and a half. So we'll start at 4:30 UK time GMT, and we'll go through to around about 6 p.m. UTC. Now, then on Wednesday, the 25th of January, we're going to be doing a special INCON Consciousness Hour, where I'll be interviewing my associate, Sarah James. Now, as everybody knows, Sarah is my wing girl, wing man, wing person when I do the Anthony Peake Consciousness Hour. Now, what I've decided to do is, I think that calling it the Anthony Peake Consciousness Hour is too vague. I don't like the idea of this, so for ongoing now, we're just going to be calling it Consciousness Hour. And what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be talking to Sarah about her new book that recently came out, published in the United States and in the UK, and I think probably in Canada as well, by Inner Traditions. And her book is called Initiation into Dream Mysteries, Drinking from the Pool of Mnemosyne. And what it's about is about dream initiations. And Sarah will be telling us about some of the events that she's going to be doing in the future, including a very interesting event she's going to be doing in Athens, in Greece in the future. Also delighted that Sarah is being interviewed everywhere. So I'm probably wondering whether we're going to be able to hold on to her that much in the future, because she's going to become mega famous, I am absolutely sure, with the interest in her book, which is absolutely excellent. So we'll be talking a little bit about that. And the reason I really want to talk to Sarah about the book is that she talks about the Pool of Mnemosyne. And that is very much in ancient Greek literature, in ancient Greek myth. It's the idea that it's the waters of remembering. It's remembering your past by drinking these waters. Now, many of you will know that in my writings, I have regularly been writing about the waters of the Lethe. And the waters of the Lethe are a similar legend in ancient Greek myth, whereby the dead, after they died, the shades would drink the water of the Lethe and forget. So in other words, Sarah's writing a book almost the opposite of the material I'm talking about. You know, in other words, I'm talking about when people die, they forget, but what she's saying is there's ways of remembering as well. So this is going to be a very, very interesting chat as well. And I'm sure that you will enjoy chatting in on that. So just to confirm, that's on Wednesday, the 25th of January at 4 p.m. UTC. Okay. Or GMT. Now, on Sunday, the 29th of January at 5 p.m., Sarah and I will be joined by world-famous researcher into NDEs, Dr. Melvin Morse. Melvin is a pediatrician and has had a fantastic career writing about near-death experiences. And I'm so looking forward to talking to Melvin. I've known of him for years, and I've read a number of his books. And indeed, many years ago, when I was talking to a fellow NDE researcher, Evelyn Valorano, I remember Evelyn turning round to me and saying that my particular angle on the near-death experience is profoundly similar to her friend Melvin Morse. Now, Melvin is also, I think he's the brother-in-law of Kenneth Ring, or Raymond Moody. No, it's Raymond Moody, I think. So he's very much central to many of the much of the research that's being done on the NDEs. And what is particularly interesting to me is that he wrote a book, I think, called Where God Can Be Found. And he's particularly interested in the role of the temporal lobes in terms of altered states of consciousness and near-death experiences. And as many of you will know, that's exactly the angle I take. There is something definitely linking the temporal lobes to these extraordinary experiences, be they NDEs, out-of-the-body experiences, or whatever. And I make a very direct link with the NDE to the experiences that individuals who experience temporal lobe epilepsy have. And in this case, for instance, I'll reference you back to a number of interviews I've done with my great friend, Myron Dial, the Californian-based artist. And again, probably after Melvin and I have chatted, it would be interesting to revisit those interviews, taking that into account, because as I've said many times, we're building up a picture here of what is going on, a picture of alternate reality and the way the mind can generate the physical reality around us, and certain things can manipulate how we perceive the world around us. So that's going to be a really, really interesting one. Then on Thursday, the 9th of February, obviously for those of you that are not based in the UK, and indeed based in the London area, this might be a little bit more difficult for you, but I'll be doing a talk at Watkins Bookshop at 5:30 p.m, again on Thursday, the 9th of February. Now, my plan on that day is that I'm planning to come into London at around about, I don't know, about 11 o'clock, something like that. And my intention is to meet up with as many people as I possibly can while I'm in London. So even if you're not necessarily intending on coming along to the talk, if you want to come along and meet up with me, what I will do is I'll announce where I'm likely to be in terms of locations. And I think it's just a wonderful opportunity for people who've read my work, or people who follow me on Facebook, or people who follow me on YouTube, to meet up with the other people that follow me, because what we're doing is we're building up a community here. And I know from the large group of friends I've already gained through my writings that they really become friends of each other. And we chat and we swap emails and we meet up and have coffee occasionally. And we just come up with great ideas, and we just sling ideas out. And that's my intention during that day. Now at 5:30 then, I will then be giving a talk on my new book, Cheating the Ferryman. It's comparatively new, as you know, it came out around June, July last year. But I have done, I think it's 4 book launches or book talks at Watkins Bookshop. And again, as many of you will know, one of my publishers is Watkins themselves. So I've done 3 of their books, I think, together with a talk I also did with 2 other fellow contributors to a book on pandeism, which I did a few years ago. Now, all of these can be watched on the Watkins website or the Watkins YouTube site. So again, if you want to check out the format of how I present these things, just go onto the Watkins website and check them out. Now, Watkins as a bookshop is extraordinary. And if you don't know it, it's beautiful. It's been there since Edwardian times. And it is in this wonderful alley just quite close to Leicester Square. And it has this wonderful feeling and atmosphere. Particularly, I always feel in the winter. It just has this very Dickensian feel to it. And it's free, so the event is free if you want to just turn up. I will be there and talking for around about 3/4 of an hour, maybe slightly less. And then I'll be doing a book signing afterwards. Now, on top of that, as with all of them, they're recorded and they are uploaded onto the Watkins YouTube site as well, so you can check them out. But also on that, just check out some of the other authors that have spoken at Watkins. It is quite extraordinary. They have quite a back catalogue of amazing speakers over many, many years. So do check that out. But again, just as a reminder, that will be on Thursday, the 9th of February at 5:30 p.m. Then on Sunday, the 12th of February, in another Consciousness Hour, Sarah and I will be interviewing musician astronomer Nancy Dean, who is also a very talented musician and performer under the name of Nova Halo. Nancy is somebody I've been wanting to meet and interview many, many times. And in fact, Nancy has announced earlier on today that she'll be coming along to the book signing event as well. So there'll be a number of people that will be there. Also, if anybody meet up with Sarah James as well, Sarah will be with me as well for that event. But Nancy is a fascinating lady. She is an astronomer by background, but also she's somebody that has experienced a lot of altered states of consciousness, of the type of altered states of consciousness I talk about. But of course, as a scientist, she takes a very, very rational, sensible viewpoint of these things. So again, she's somebody that is going to be fascinating to talk about, but I'll also be talking about her music as well. Because one of the things going forward is I'm thinking of moving slightly Consciousness Hour also to themes in terms of the arts and music and culture as well. So not just exclusively being about people who've had extraordinary experiences or people who write about these extraordinary experiences. Then on the 21st of February, on Friday, the 21st of February, for 2 days, Friday, Saturday and Sunday, in fact, 3 days, I'll be at Breaking Convention. Now, Breaking Convention is for me probably the greatest event that you can possibly go to. I've been to about 4 of them in the past when they were based at Greenwich University, and they usually happen every 2 years, and it is an event and it's international. You get thousands of people turning up and you have literally scores of speakers. And the general theme is altered states of consciousness, entheogens, and similar subjects to this. And I know they have some fantastic people involved in this, and it's run effectively by Dr. David Luke, and it is also facilitated by a number of other people I know quite well and have developed friendships with over the years. Now, what is particularly interesting this year, oh, by the way, if anybody again is interested, they have all the videos of many of the speakers they've had in the past, including myself. I spoke about 6 or 7 years ago there. And it's still one of their most popular videos they've had, which is very nice to see. But unfortunately, they've moved away from the University of Greenwich in London, and they will be based now at the University of Exeter in the West Country in England, in Devon. So it's going to be interesting to see the numbers that will turn up for this. Now, again, I'm going to be there. And again, there is a number of my friends and associates that will always also be there. And we use this as a great meetup. And in fact, we were guilty last time, in 2019, which was the last time they had the event, whereby we all got so interested in the things we were talking about to each other that we ended up missing a lot of the lectures because we were so intrigued with spinning out our ideas as well. And of course, at the University of Greenwich, it's such a wonderful location. The sun always seems to shine there as well, which is really nice. But it's 3 wonderful days. Now, on top of that, I'm going to be there for the Friday, the Saturday, and maybe the Sunday. I won't be there in the evening, but I will be there during the day. But there are evening events as well. There's discos, there's social events and everything else as well. It's just a wonderful experience. And if you've never done it before, please check it out. And also it's the opportunity to go down to the beautiful West Country of England as well. But it's going to be interesting to see how many people don't turn up this time purely and simply because of the distance that you need to travel to get there. Then on Sunday, the 12th of March, also at 5 p.m. UK time, I'm really excited about this. I'm going to be joined by a prolific music historian by the name of Jonny, who'll be joining us from Saskatchewan in Canada. Now, I came across John's work about 2 or 3 years ago. Now, as many of you know, I love my music, and I'm particularly interested in folk rock and country rock. It's something that I've always loved ever since, well, probably since the late 1960s and the early 1970s when I got into bands such as Poco and the Flying Burrito Brothers. And John is, I would say, probably the world's leading writer on the subject of country rock and associated variations on rock. And he's written a whole series of books on country rock music. And he knows many of the major characters involved in country rock. And he's written books on a number of my favorite bands, such as Buffalo Springfield, The Byrds, Love, and of course the Flying Burrito Brothers. But his great book, as far as I'm concerned, his masterpiece, is Desperados, The Roots of Country Rock, which really takes you through how country rock developed. And of course, I'm very, very sad to announce with the sad news of the death of David Crosby, it is very apposite, I think, that we'll be talking about this, because to me, clearly one of the great bands of that period was Crosby, Stills and Nash, and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and the variations on the various Crosby, Nash and Stills, Crosby and Nash, Stills, Young. There is so many. And I did funnily enough, I did a look through of my musical collection, and I have around about probably 2,000 albums in either CD form or cassette form or MP3 form that I've collected over the last 40, 50 years. And the person there's more albums that feature the music of David Crosby in my collection than any other person, which seems to me that Crosby was obviously a great influence on me. And clearly you all will know that one of the main features of my writings is the great mystery of déjà vu and the idea that I have been here before. And of course, some of you will know that one of David Crosby's most famous songs was Déjà Vu, which was off the album Déjà Vu by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. And that was the title. But the song itself is wonderful and fascinating. And indeed, it has been, I actually did a loop of the verse, "We have all been here before." And that's my ringtone on my phone. So it's something very personal to me. So as I said in on the post I did this morning on Facebook, in terms of David Crosby, in the song, he says, if I'd ever been here before, I would know how to deal with all of you. And of course, the thing is now, if my theory is correct and my hypothesis is correct of cheating the ferryman, David is back in being reborn again in California in September of 1941 and starting his life again. And his daemon will know how to deal with all of you, because the daemon will remember the life he just lived. So it's going to be fascinating to talk to John about the music and the background. I've learned a lot from his books as well, because there's been a number of bands I'd never heard of before that he mentions that I've looked into, and I thought, wow, they were very, very good. So check it out. It's going to be a fascinating discussion. Then the big one, the big announcement is that I will be in California, in Indian Wells, in Southern California, from Friday, June the 2nd to Monday, the June the 5th this year. Now, as some of you will know, I should have spoken at the 2020 Contact in the Desert, but because of COVID, that was cancelled. And some of you will know that I then recorded a couple of lectures for the online 2021 event that they did, which was very interesting. But of course, being online is different. Now, what this is, Contact in the Desert, it is probably the world's biggest get-together of people interested in the UFO phenomenon. Literally thousands of people turn up for this, and it's out in the desert of Southern California in Indian Wells. It used to be literally out, I think it used to be out in Joshua Tree, outside, whereas now they've moved and they've got a conference center. Now, I've agreed to be doing, at the moment, as far as I'm aware, 3 events that'll be there. So I will be doing a lecture, and this will be one of 2. I'll either be discussing my egregorial hypothesis, which of course is directly relevant to Contact in the Desert, because I'm discussing UFOs, the role of aliens, what exactly are the aliens, and I could do a presentation on my egregorial hypothesis. But I feel that probably I discussed that a little bit in my presentation that I did in 2021. But if they're interested in that, I'll do that. If not, I'm going to do a talk on Philip K. Dick, and I'm going to entitle that The Plasmate. And I'm going to be discussing the UFO aspects of the life and experiences of Philip K. Dick, the American science fiction writer, because Philip K. Dick, as you know, I wrote a book on him a few years ago, The Man Who Remembered the Future. And Philip K. Dick, in his extensive writings, his notes, which he called the exegesis, he has many, many examples in there of ideas that he believed that he was a star seed. He believed that he had come here from somewhere else. And I want to really talk about that a little bit, because that's a little known aspect of Philip K. Dick and his writings. And also his ideas that we were being watched by entities or intelligences from outside of this planet, maybe on satellites or something, which is when he brought out his concept of Valis. But he also had another concept he called Firebright. And there were a number of these entities that seemed to be involved in his life in one way or another. And I'm thinking of maybe doing a lecture about that. So it's either going to be a talk on the egregorial hypothesis or the plasmate, or it could be both. I might mix the two together. So that will be for around about an hour and a half. Then they've also asked me to do a workshop, which I'm really excited about because it's something I've wanted to do for years. And I'm going to do a workshop on the daemon. Many of you will have read my book, The Daemon, A Guide to Your Extraordinary Secret Self. And what I will try to do in the workshop is to discuss techniques and methods whereby maybe we can communicate with our own daemon. And I'm going to do examples of how human perception works and the way in which the way we perceive reality may not be a one-to-one relationship with what is actually out there. But I'll be talking about the daemon, I'll be talking about models, I'll be talking about the neurophysiology and the neurochemistry of the daemon model. And I'll also be talking about how I believe that the daemon can be communicated with along something I call the Huxleyan spectrum, which is opening the doors of perception, the idea that our doors of perception are opened more and more as we become more and more attuned to what I call the Bohmian IMAX, the extended matrix-like reality that we may be living in. So that is something I will be doing on that. Now, on top of that, I've also agreed, but we need to have this confirmed, to also do something called the intensive. And an intensive is literally what it sounds like. It takes place on the Monday after the event has formally finished, but there is a series of intensives that take place that people can pay extra for, which are much longer, and maybe 2 hours, maybe 3 hours. And what I'm going to be doing there is doing an intensive on the science supporting the concept of the holographic universe and the science of the idea that this is some form of simulation. Or more importantly, what one of my fellow speakers that will also be involved in the event, Dr. Andrew Gallimore, calls an instantation. Because if we use the term simulation, it suggests that it's a copy of something else. And of course, this is one of the things that Philip K. Dick argued. He made a very famous speech in Metz in France, where he argued about this being a simulation many, many years ago. So Philip K. Dick, again, is somebody that had twigged on this. But for me, I want to take people through the science. I want you to understand via this intensive that this is not woo-woo. This is based upon observed cosmology. It's based upon quantum mechanics. It's based upon quantum physics. And I'll be taking you through step by step why it is that many of the modern quantum physicists and cosmologists believe that we are living in something that is far more complex and is probably structured using mathematics and binary code. And again, it's to do with black holes, and it's to do with a lot of the effects we see in quantum mechanics. Now, in order to explain those, I'm going to have to take people right back to the basics of quantum mechanics, right back to exactly what we mean when we talk about the observer problem, exactly what we talk about when we talk about superposition, what we mean by quantum leaping, what we mean by a lot of the terminologies that people use, that use as New Age writers use. But what I'm going to do is the science. So I'm going to give you a model and an understanding of science, like, for instance, an explanation of why Schrodinger's cat is so strange, why it is that Max Tegmark's model of the quantum suicide Gedanken experiment is so interesting. Because what I will be able to do is give you the tools to then engage with skeptics and with scientists with knowledge that they cannot argue back with you at. Because one of the major problems a lot of the skeptics have is they talk from a feeling of superiority. Now, there's an awful lot of new age wackos out there that talk about quantum physics, but they talk about quantum physics in a nonsensical way. They don't really fully understand it. But then again, nobody really fully understands quantum physics. Nobody does. As Richard Feynman said, if you think you understand quantum physics, you don't. You understand the implications of what they might be saying. But what I'm going to give you are the tools. So when somebody turned around and said Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, you'll know what it is. Not only will you know what it is, but you know what it means. And what it means for human psychology, what it means for the way we perceive the reality around us. So I'll be taking you through systematically, as I do in my books. And those of you who know that have read my latest book, Cheating the Ferryman, and indeed my earlier books, particularly The Labyrinth of Time, which talks about time as a concept, and also my first book is The Life After Death, The Extraordinary Science of What Happens When We Die. I take you through the science. I take you through why it is that many, many scientists believe in the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. What we talk about when we talk about alternate dimensions of space-time. What do we mean by that? These are all things I will take you through. So hopefully that will be something you will really find of interest. So if you can get along to this. Now, also, I'll be around for the whole 3 days. And it is, again, my nature to engage with people. I'm not going to be sitting there in where the speakers are. I'm going to be out and about. And I'm going to be talking and meeting with people. And I know that there are a number of people I know from America that are going to be coming along to meet me there. I'm hoping, for instance, that Myron Dial, my great friend from Los Angeles, will be joining me, the gentleman I was talking about before who experiences temporal lobe epilepsy. I'm hoping he's going to be joining me. And there's also a possibility, if I can engineer it, that we might have some Lucias with us as well, some the holographic light device, the machine I've talked about many times. Because last time when we were doing the event in 2020, there was a plan to get at least one Lucia over to the event. And we'll see if we can do this as well, because it could fit in very nicely with either my workshop or my intensive. But we'll see how that works from now. But anyway, thanks everybody for that. I hope you all found it very, very interesting, and I hope it's engendered your interest in the things I'm going to be doing over the next few months. There'll be much more coming on stream. There are a lot more guests I want to bring in on INCON and also Consciousness Hour as well. But that's the basic things at the moment. Now, what I will do is over the weekend, I'll put links on my YouTube site underneath this talk, this presentation, and I'll put all the links to how you can find all the things I'm talking about. So come along, get along to them, say hi. We're a community. You know, I don't have all the answers. We collectively may have all the answers. But I think, as I've said many times, one day we're all going to sit around chatting, maybe under the desert sun or maybe in London, and suddenly all the bits and the pieces will fall together. That's what I'm hoping. And in which case then we break out of the simulation or the instantation or the matrix. And what happens next? Well, that's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? Okay, thanks for listening, everybody, and have a wonderful weekend. And hopefully I'll be seeing you all soon. Okay, thanks very much. Thanks.